Hey, 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 everybody. It's Amy Carlson, the Toxin Terminator. We are so glad you are joining us. You know, each and every podcast is brought to you by Christian Mix 106, bringing Jesus to people each and every day. Go to christianmix106.com to listen live stream. My guest today, I cannot wait for you guys to hear him, Tommy Markov. What a pleasure to have you in here today. I want to give you guys a little bit of background for Tommy. He is a functional nutrition coach and a health educator. He utilizes an individualized approach with each of his clients to optimize their health and live a happier life. Tommy's clients seek him out for issues ranging from weight loss, gut health and digestive issues, whole body detoxification. You know, we're all about that. Chronic disease management. I would really like us to get to a place in this country where we didn't even have to talk about the word chronic disease, where he specializes in intermittent fasting, improving stress resilience. Boy, we're headed into the holidays. We can use some of that.
Right.
Uncomplicating relationships with food, healthy aging, and disease prevention. Despite his own personal struggles, or perhaps because of them, Tommy is able to live a healthy, fulfilled, and regret-free life, making a living doing what he is most passionate about. Now at the age of 45 and finding himself in better health and shape than when he was in his 30s, Tommy knows a thing or two about perseverance and overcoming setbacks. He joins us on our show today to tell us a bit about his journey and how he is partnering with others in achieving their health and wellness goals. Tommy, I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
Amy, so much. Thank you for having me on. I'm so blessed to be on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can talk all things health and detox.
There's so much that we are really going to dive into today. Number one, I want to make sure that we're getting to know, I have been in doing this for better than a year now, and almost every single person that's in our space has had their own personal journey. They've overcome huge obstacles, and it's just really lit a fire underneath of them to be able to go out and share with others. And I'm understanding that you've got one of those stories as well.
Yes, absolutely, Amy. I had my health until I didn't have it. We kind of take it for granted. A series of sports-related injuries, accidents, and I guess genetics and environmental influences and lifestyle factors just kind of led me to have a lot of arthritic issues, multiple knee surgeries, injuries over and over. I have 2 knee replacements at 45, which is like
wow,
kind of unheard of. Yeah, and I deal with a lot of back issues, so I deal with chronic pain on a daily basis, and so I was always that fit person. Whether I was eating well and I was fit. I worked out. I enjoyed it. I swam. I did everything. Then trouble happened. Then my knees got wrecked. I had knee surgery, and I kind of just found myself succumbing to that. Poor me, just I can't go to the gym. I can't be that health and fitness guy now. So that really affected me. That really messed with my mind.
Yeah.
And you let one habit go, it's like a chain reaction. Sometimes the eating kind of followed. And why bother eating? You're not going to the gym. When in essence, that's really when I should be honing in on my eating, because I can't go to the gym. But I adopted that mindset of who really just cares. And I was, after a lot of different surgeries, I was on a lot of different pain medications, other types of medications. And what eventually just led to out of control eating, inability to really move. Like what I knew of exercise was all that was stripped from me. So I was just forced. One day I looked at myself and I'm like, I'm 308 pounds.
Wow.
It's 308 pounds. So I'm 6'4". So for part of me can say, okay, you carry that well, but 308 pounds is still 308 pounds. When I tell you I could not see my toes and other parts, I could not see them. And I grew up with a six pack. It was another thing that messed with me. There was a lot of body shaming going on.
Oh.
And that was something that was new to me. That was something that I just kind of subconsciously thought that's something that women deal with. But
Mm-hmm.
I found myself avoiding intimacy situations. I found myself avoiding going to the beach and taking my shirt off.
Mm-hmm.
I was uncomfortable with the lights on really bright and certain
Mm-hmm.
clothing. I always wore everything like triple X when XL was fine, because bagginess hid that.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to hide myself anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't like where I was. I knew where I was headed. My cholesterol was really high, so it was doctors did the blood work. Cholesterol was high, sugar was high, blood pressure was high, weight and waist circumference was high. So essentially, what that is metabolic syndrome,
Right.
trifecta for metabolic syndrome. So it didn't have a good outlook. And then you throw in on top of that my arthritic issues, my knee and back stuff, and so I wasn't really at a good place. But the only thing I could really focus on was food, because there's only so much I could do physically with my limitations.
Sure.
So like 85% of my weight loss and my excuse me and my health journey came from the kitchen. And that's what I had to hone in on. And I really just dialed in on, I have a degree in biology and psychology. So I took a lot of, I have a background in a lot of these foods and nutrition. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of reconnected with that.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to school. I switched my major, actually. I was halfway through a psychology master's, and I dropped out of that to go to a nutrition and functional medicine master's. And I'm completing that program shortly. So, um, that's how passionate this whole thing got me, because what it did for me, how it changed my life. Yeah, I lost 120 something pounds, and I'm going to tell you one thing, and that's not a big thing because a lot of people can say that. I think we're like the underlying, what you have to underline is that was 6 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it hasn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing that is important to know, because I've broken away from the fad dieting, and we just
Mm-hmm.
adopted a healthy eating lifestyle, all about whole foods and just cooking more of my own foods. And
Mm-hmm.
this has been a great time. This is a bad time in a lot of ways, but myself and a lot of my clients have taken advantage of being at home and cooking at home, and that's a lot of things we've been doing is pantry cleanouts, is cooking things and doing meal planning
Mm-hmm.
and cooking healthy, and a lot of different like whole food workshops and things like that. So people have been taking advantage of that, and I've liked seeing that movement, and I like seeing that um, that people get reconnected with their health like I did, because that's essentially what I'm trying to get people to do, is say, listen, don't, there's a better way. You don't
Right.
have to be on, because I was on medication for everything. And then I was on the medication for a side effect for a different medication.
Yeah.
Like, so needless to say, and I wasn't eating well, I wasn't living well, I was drinking alcohol a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine, like from a toxin standpoint, toxic load standpoint, my body was clogged up.
Yeah. Well, Tommy, take me back though to when this journey started. You talked about, because of different physical things, you couldn't, move, and you had the surgeries, and that you just started, really spinning out of control with your food choices and
Mm-hmm.
probably some other choices as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to talk though more, and you really painted a clear picture on what that time of life was like for you. Thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened? What flipped the switch for you? What was it that, because I don't think that people just wake up someday and say, I think I don't want to be on all these medicines anymore.
No, I was unhappy for a long time. I was unhappy for years, but I
Mhm.
was I was eating, and I was just not living a healthy lifestyle, and with other things too. So I was in a bad place because of that, but I was numbing that. So I was running away from that. I wasn't addressing that. You know, I didn't have to think about it that day, but the next day, that the problem's still there. So, the turning point for me, I think, was I was getting close to my 40s, 45 now. So this is like 37, 38. And one of my big values is having a family, starting a family, and kids, and all,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have to say anything more, just doing that. And I didn't see that happening because I was alone. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like myself, so I didn't expect anybody else to like me.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of time alone getting to know myself, but getting to know myself like in some dark places. So I had to dig myself out of that because what I did was I saw myself fight. Like if I didn't change, what's this going to look like a year from now?
Mm.
Like if this sucks now, like how bad is this going to suck if you do nothing about it in 5 years?
Right.
That's essentially like what I had to look at and connect to and really just think about. It was almost like like that the Charles Dickens story
Mm-hmm.
when he
Mm-hmm.
gets visited by the ghosts and
Yeah. Yeah. The
that
past.
5-10 year
Yeah.
process and I heard that somewhere a while back, but I thought about it and like I don't want to I don't want to be old and alone and have regrets and then it's too late to change them because that's a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
I like it hurts. I've seen it in people's eyes. I've
Mm-hmm.
worked in hospitals and nursing homes when I used to
Mm-hmm.
work in medicine and pharma. So like I don't want to be in that position. So
Right.
I wanted to take my life back. I
Right.
wanted to take my life back, and I just went. I so I signed up for a 10-day nutrition challenge, somewhere online. I couldn't even tell you what it was, and it wasn't really complicated. It was it was just eat clean, don't eat processed foods, don't eat a lot of sugar, hydrate yourself, get some daily exercise. It was like the most basic thing, but it was just about accountability and so that turned into like 30 days,
Mm-hmm.
90 days, 6 months, and like I don't know. I think it's going on 6 years. I think maybe I'm still on a challenge, but it turned into a lifestyle. It really just kicked it off. So like it's something. It was a combination of like me being sick of where I was at and seeing an opportunity like that and taking advantage of something like seeing a podcast with a nutrition coach,
Yeah.
or taking advantage of a Facebook challenge if it's free or something like that, or just accountability things. I love running accountability challenge, and then it doesn't have to be about food or nutrition, but those are just great in themselves because people need accountability in a lot of different areas, and it's amazing to see what people can accomplish when they have just a little bit of added accountability. And sometimes that's what coaching is just about. So a lot of my clients have the information already. Some
Yeah.
I have to do more educating with than
Mm-hmm.
others, but some just need that extra accountability, that championing, and that support, and just
Turns
sometimes
it.
kicking
Yeah.
them up.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I love that your 10-day challenge has turned into 6 years. That I love that. That is amazing.
yeah, and that's all it is, and because it was just I don't know how much really changed over 10 days, but I just felt really good about myself.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
eating clean and I was thinking clean, and
yeah.
and it was also a mental detox because I think, you know, like as you talk a lot about detoxification, and I work with clients to do detoxification, it's
Mhm.
not just physical. It's not just about what we eat and take into our bodies. It's about your thoughts. It's
Mhm.
about your stress levels.
Yeah.
That has a direct inflammation direct link to inflammation and
Right.
stress and everything else.
Well, I think when people can feel a result, whatever that is, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, when you feel some sort of result, whether you get it in 10 days or 30 days, that is what drives you to keep moving forward, right?
Right, exactly, and it's small steps, and that's one of the things I emphasize, and it's really just small little actionable steps that it's ones that you choose, not I don't give them to you. It's whatever you are comfortable doing, and that's what it happened to me. It was it was doing the small steps. It was just really easy challenge, and I'm like, this is so easy, and I felt good because it was just daily like check mark things that you have to check off. And so yeah, it can be as simple as that, and just that added accountability, and just to those simple steps and those little victories, and that's why it's important to do them small, because then you know what, we celebrate more often. And
We
the more
love
often we
it.
celebrate little victory, and the more often I get to high five my clients virtually now, it's just, it builds momentum. It builds
Absolutely.
momentum. If you set the goal way far high, way too high, or too soon, or too out of where they're at, in their stage of change, and it's difficult. So I'm all about making it sustainable, and I think that's why my clients have a lot of success, because we make it small. We look for the low hanging fruit.
Yes, I love that. That's so good. Talk to me about what were some of the biggest surprises for you as you started down this journey of really reclaiming your health and your mental health. The whole encapsulated picture.
Mhm.
But I know there were a few things that really stood out for you. And what do you think was the biggest thing that you said, wow, I can't believe this is there?
Uh, I just think the whole process, honestly, like when I look at the whole journey, like I can't believe like I was able to do it, and without surgery, without fad dieting, without pills, without shakes, without like just real whole food, like actual food, and like, but I just ate differently. I ate quality foods.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I cooked my own foods. I stopped being a convenience person. A lot of people say, oh, I have a problem eating convenience foods. Well, you're also a convenience person. How much of that is true?
Right.
So, but that was a big shift for me, and that the the other thing is just the amount of information that's
Mm,
out there in general. Not even talking about the misinformation.
right.
Everyone's got a blog, and there's always an article about something, and no matter how great something is, there's always an article against it. And so it's like you have to be careful, like what you Google, because you can Google yourself into like kidney failure if you really like, you
Yeah.
know, if you're
Yeah.
diligent enough with your symptoms. So I think the amount of misinformation out there, and I think how health is misrepresented, how healthy food is misrepresented.
Yeah. You talk about, the gap in the food policy.
Mhm.
And I think that speaks a lot to what people perceive as being um, healthy and what really is healthy.
Hmm. Right. So, we're constantly hearing about the obesity epidemic, the diabetes epidemic, chronic disease, heart disease, everything's skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Why is it skyrocketing if we're having like the most major, amazing technological, pharmaceutical, and medical advances, and things are skyrocketing?
Right.
Fat, like low fat diet, stop eating fat. Okay, somebody had a bright idea, I guess. Why has since then, why has chronic disease skyrocketed? Because we've vilified fats. You
Mhm.
know, certain fats possibly, but not all fats.
Right.
And then that happened because we didn't do nothing to replace the fats, but here come processed sugars. That's
Right.
what we replaced them with. So yeah, it's just a lot of that going on.
Right. Right. And people, I think that there's a lot of people too that uh, they choose different ways to do things. And listen, I think that we each have our own. Everybody's body chemistry is different. My personal belief is you have to do what works for you.
Hmm.
but I think that there's definitely some things. I mean, we've got a lot of really bad toxins in our food, and I believe food is one of the not easiest but biggest impacts on our overall health when we can choose to eat whole foods that come from the earth,
Mhm.
versus these franken foods that have been created.
Yeah. Absolutely, that's one of the single biggest shifts that you can make is stop buying stuff with wrappers and food labels, and buy stuff that you have to cook, and whole foods, exactly. And that's why I love that. That's my approach, is a whole food approach. Like, yeah, I do I do ketogenic dieting, I do intermittent fasting if my clients come to me asking for that, or sometimes that might become essential in the protocol or their goals. However, on a whole, I whole foods. My approach is a whole food, like an anti-inflammatory, essentially like an elimination type diet. We're cutting out just processed foods and sugars, and just a lot of whole foods. Just like, carbs are not bad. It's just we've got to look at like where they're coming from. Plant-based carbs are okay, but processed carbs are not good because they're fast carbs. They're so processed that they don't even need to get absorbed. They just get absorbed, and they don't even register as food, and they don't do anything to tell your body to say, hey, okay, I'm full, slow down eating.
Right. What about I like that you talk about carbohydrates, and I think again, everybody's got to determine what works for them. But I think there's a big misconception that it's not necessarily that the carbohydrate is bad, but it's that mixture of the carbohydrate, the protein, and the fat, that we're not getting that good combination of the three of them, and eating things in a series of how we should be eating them so that our foods can process and be, healthy for the body. Am I thinking along the right lines with that?
Um, yeah, I mean, of course, eating balanced meals is
Mhm.
important, because you do want to eat protein with every meal, and some form of healthy carbs, and that essentially is what a whole food diet looks like, is a lot of vegetables, and some fruit and different things like that, and protein and some healthy fat. So eating a balanced meal absolutely helps, because
Mhm.
a lot of times people get hunger cravings, and you got to look at, like, what are they eating, or what are they not eating?
Right,
What's their body asking for? And then you
right,
look at it, it's like, well, they haven't had any protein because they've been, maybe eating a certain thing, for lunch, or for something from the vending machine, or something
mhm,
that doesn't have the nutrients in it. Yeah, you can have the calories, but if you don't have the nutrients, those hunger signals are not going to get turned off.
right,
And
right,
that's the issue with processed foods, is like, they're so processed and have so many calories, and they make you want to keep coming back for more. Um, but they don't have the nutrients, and so you're still going to be hungry, and
right,
you're going to continue to make bad choices because we're already on that train.
right. What do you think about the people who just count calories?
I think if it works for them,
Hmm.
so be
So,
it. I think that's great. Yeah, I think like you said before, to each their own. Um, I think if that's where someone needs to be at, if that's something that works for them, then that's fine.
mhm,
It's not something that I find that works for everybody.
mhm.
It can become a little bit obsessive in some for some people, where that is a how do I call it, something that's already kind of there, like a pre-existing condition.
Right, right.
So, like, I have worked with some people that have come off really strict diets.
Hmm.
Some of those restrictive, like, keto carnivore diets, and that have really messed up their health, their gut health. Uh, and also, just it affects mood,
Sure,
because also
sure.
you're shaming yourself for eating a little bit of carbs.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
the balance is absolutely necessary. You
yep.
know, and I think, were you kind of leaning a little bit towards food combining, pairing foods?
Well, yeah, I think there has to be something, there's certain foods that we just need to eat with other foods in order for, our body to utilize them, the way that they were intended to be utilized.
Right. So if I think you're referring to food combining, it's certain foods are better eaten together or separately apart from each other because of the way they're digested. Meaning, so example, carbohydrates, and this is not including like plant sources like vegetables. This is like breads, pasta, starchy carbs. So if you eat this, basically your essential meal, like anything with like carbs and protein. So like a hamburger, meat, potatoes, pasta and chicken. So like any most of your like classic meals, those two combinations together, they compete for digestive enzymes. So what happens is the carbs are competing for digestion, so is the protein, and they're both slowing each other down. So when the protein gets slowed down, the digestion gets slowed down. What happens? The protein putrefacts. And then what happens to the carbs? The carbs ferment. And then you get digestive discomfort, a lot of other things that we don't need to talk about. So, and that's not good for the body. So eating things separately. So eating, for example, like protein with a vegetable, perfect. Eating a vegetable like with anything is actually fine. But for example, carbohydrates like starchy carbs should be eaten more alone or a little bit separately from the meal just because of the way they're digested.
Is that why, and probably not everybody, but is that why we tend to get really tired after we have a high carbohydrate meal? And especially when we add that protein in with it, is because our body is so busy trying to digest the food that we just fed it that all the energy is going there.
Certainly, yes, absolutely. And the heavier your meal, the more that feeling you're going to have. I don't find that. I find less of that if I eat let's any type of protein, but eat it with a vegetable, not potatoes, not pasta, not rice. Or not like a whole bunch of different things together. So protein and veggie, like protein and plants, like that's like the core of my diet: protein, plants, and healthy fats. You really can't go wrong. Like I emphasize the plants.
Yeah. Tell us a food we're I'm like digging this conversation that we're having here. Tell us a food that surprised you that sugar was in, because you alluded or you talked about earlier on that we want to make sure that we're eating a diet that's a non-inflammation diet. And sugar is certainly one of those things that we want to process sugar avoid on if we're having, inflammation is kind of the source behind a lot of things. But what surprised you to say, really, there's sugar in that?
I mean, I think initially when I started out learning about nutrition, starchy vegetables kind of surprised me, like in some of the sugar content. So with something like root vegetables, carrots, beets, things like that. And so and some people don't respond to those foods because of that sugar content. Because of actually the sugar types, and they have an issue digesting, not the content. But it's what really just shocked me is just the amount of sugars that are in the processed foods. Like we all know that there's sugar. It's not like there's no cloaking that anymore, but it's just like learning what that means and learning how the added sugars and just the types of sugars and I think the biggest wake-up call for me was learning how to interpret the ingredients. It's great that you're reading the label and the protein content and added salt and sugars and all that and cholesterol, but like you have to read the ingredients. You have to know where they're coming from. If you have to see if there's everything is flour, sugar, and now there's like 96 different names for sugar. Because when they make a food label, they have to list it in order of volume. Right. So now they've split the sugar. Listen, if we add 4 different kinds of sugar, it's just going to be all over a list, and it's going to look more benign. Right. You're not going to see sugar on top of the list. Right. But all of a sudden you see a food label with 10 ingredients, and 6 of them are actually sugars.
that, and I just think that kind of labeling and that kind of process that happens in our country is really angers me, because it's so deceptive. And as a consumer, that makes it very difficult for us to be able to make smart decisions. Now, me personally, I don't buy the stuff that I have to read that stinking label in the first place, right? So, but what would be your biggest tip for, those that, I mean, because making like salad dressing, I knew I wanted to eat a lot more salads, and I love making up salads because you can put so much stuff in there and really get a good, healthy meal. But I'm still buying salad dressing, and there was so much junk in the salad dressing.
Amy, you bring up a great point. Like, you can make the healthiest salad, but you can destroy it with like a bunch of ranch dressing and bacon, like, and all that kind of stuff. And, like whatever else that, you can make it, just choosing the wrong, like unhealthy fats really, and processed dressings.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you saw me, I reached back because you were talking about food labels and you started talking about dressings. I just did a video about these oil.
God.
So you see the heart healthy claim right there, right?
I can't.
So
that my listeners, if you're watching this video, hold that back up again, Tommy, would you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
There we go. So what if you're watching the video, this is what we call greenwashing.
So this is the seed oil. These are unhealthy. This is one of the biggest changes that you can make if you're having problems with inflammation or any kind of weight gain problem with energy issues, because these oils are so highly processed that
it's cholesterol free.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So it says, cholesterol free, trans fat free. Yeah, okay, fine. It may not have cholesterol. It's not supposed to have trans fats. That's not even allowed. So there's no need to list that. Okay, no saturated fats. Who cares? They're not that bad anyway. Okay, but it's got a ton of polyunsaturated fats, and these are seed oils. It's hard to extract oil from a seed, so it's got to be done at super high temperature. What happens when we heat fat, and it gets oxidized? It gets so there. That's why do you think these aren't in dark bottles? Because they cannot be oxidized any further. Like it's inflammation in a bottle, but yet it says heart healthy. I don't have my glasses. I'm not that young anymore, but it basically says on this side, if you flip it over right here.
Here, I'll get my glasses. It'll come over a little bit. Yeah.
I'll read it for you. It basically says this company acknowledges that the FDA sees little scientific evidence to support this claim. So, is it on there?
Oh my God! They actually have that on the bottle. Oh my gosh!
So yeah. So next, and this was $197. It was $299. I got it on sale for $197. But you know what? I'm still going to return it because I refuse to support this company. I'm getting my $1.97 back. But next time you go to this store, because I was shopping for olive oil and I see these things and I'm like, what's with these heart healthy claims? Where are they getting these from? And going through the education that I've went through, these seed oils are what they were killing us. That's what's driving inflammation, obesity, diabetes. Because the problem with these oils is they're so highly heated, the structure has changed. Your body doesn't recognize them. So your body can't utilize them, first of all, as energy. So they get stored. And because they're not recognized, they're not used for energy, you're still hungry because they don't hit that satiety center like a healthy fat would, from like olive oil or avocado oil or coconut oil.
Yeah, and let me add in. Tommy's saying a very good thing here. The body doesn't recognize it. The body doesn't recognize it. So when our body doesn't recognize something we put in it, whether by consumption of our food or we put it on our body, absorbing it, you're keeping your body in a constant state of inflammation because your body is seeing a invader, something foreign, something toxic coming into it, and so it's constantly attacking.
And it's stored, and these
Fact.
and these oils are stored, and
Yeah.
and then they cannot be burned off. They're hard to be burned off because they're just so synthetic.
Mm. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir on that one. So what's your tip? What's your tip with foods? I mean, go ahead.
So as far as the oils go, just so these are not vegetable oils. A lot of people say, I use vegetable oils. No, these are seed oils. So olive oil, avocado oil, things like that. Even coconut oil is okay. I have no issue with saturated fats. They're not the issue. These guys are the issue.
That's the issue. Okay.
That's the issue, and as far as that goes, and that's one of the biggest things. One of the first changes and easiest things that I do with my clients, and I find a lot of people is thinking that these are healthy.
Yeah.
And then you read, and I challenge you to go do this. Anyone like tuning in today, next time you go to the supermarket, go read that label on the side. They all have to have it, and especially this company. So
isn't that nuts? It just boggles the mind.
How? Right. Like so. I mean, we all can kind of connect the dots, and we might kind of talk about that. But it's like, why is that allowed to happen? Why do we know that childhood obesity is rising, and we know that junk food is just full of crap, and high fructose corn syrup is bad, yet it continues to be everywhere, on every shelf, everywhere, all over TV.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I saw
Halloween.
Yeah, I saw a commercial the other day for avocados, and I got all excited. I'm like, oh my God, somebody's making healthy commercials. It was a Peruvian commercial. And I'm like, Viva Peru,
Not even in the United States.
Right. But then we get our sweet tricks and Cheerios and Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Fruit Loops and Frankenberries and all those things that are just full of just sugar, garbage, and fast carbs.
Bread.
Right. And I think another misconception that I think people have is that bread and things like that are starchy carbs. They're okay. If you look at it in terms of how fast they're absorbed and digested, if they're they're fast carbs because it's already processed flour, refined sugars and flours. So it's processed immediately. And it's got high fructose corn syrup, which just gets absorbed immediately. It doesn't need to get digested.
This is crazy. So Tommy, tell people I did create here a deal where we can show, if you want to connect with Tommy, you can go to his website, which we've been scrolling on the bottom of the screen, which is livingwellnesssolutions.com. That's also his Instagram account name is Living Wellness Solutions. And then Facebook is the Living Wellness Inner Circle. And really get some more tips because there's so much more to talk about living well. We have just absolutely scratched the surface, but I want to give you the last word here. And is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with as we're closing up?
I think just cultivate a sense of awareness of choices, of hunger cues, read food labels, educate yourself.
Yeah.
Watch some of those Netflix documentaries on foods and toxins and ones like Stink, like learn what's out there because the issue is we've for 50, 60 years we've been highly processing our foods. We've been adding chemicals into our foods. We've been putting chemicals into our furniture that we manufacture, into different things, into different products and personal care products, and nobody has ever asked, like, does this cause issues?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go with yes, it's causing issues. Like, live clean house, clean air, clean food.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. If you are like Tommy and you're at a point where you're looking at your future and maybe you're thinking, do I even have a future? At this point, reach out. reach out to Tommy. He is a independent coach. He can help guide you through the steps that you need to take so that that future can be bright for yourself, so that you can have that 80 years old and have it look healthy and vibrant and full of energy and active. I appreciate you, Tommy, for coming on today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Amy. Thank you for having me on.
You bet.